Oh yeah, welcome visitors. We have visitors.
May I?
Sure.
On September the 16th last year, you were asked to fill a vacancy on the Board of Finance that was due to the harassment of Valerie Nye off of the Board of Finance. At that time, it was pointed out how ironic it was that this was being filled by the current president emeritus of the AFL-CIO after this was a harassment by the president of the AFL-CIO. Mr. Fritz lectured you that there was a 3-2 Democrat majority and that they could pass this without the votes of the 2 Republicans, and that in fact the 3 Democrats could have blocked other nominations, which they had not done, and it might be wise for you to vote in favor of this, even though there were other candidates that you might have put on, including Laurie Santos and James Kelly Welch. But in the end, you did vote unanimously to fill this slot as recommended. Go forward 10 weeks, and now that the tide has turned, and there are 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, probably the first time that's happened in 20 years. And I was nominated to fill Mr. Farmer's seat, and Mr. Fritz and Mrs. Pender did not follow their own advice, and it was voted along party lines, which is fine. I understand that. I kind of wish the Republicans had done that as well and had that courage. What was not okay were the disparaging remarks that he made about me. They were unfair, they were scurrilous, they were not accurate, and I think they deserve a response. First of all, he complained about how much it had cost for the FOIA request that I had made. He neglected to point out that all FOIA requests are at the expense of the person who brings them, and I'd spent hundreds of dollars of my own money, maybe as much as $1,000, on these FOIA requests. And he made it sound as though they were fruitless and they were frivolous, when in fact you all know that they were not. They exposed the email from the clerk in the assessor's office to a member of the Board of Assessment Appeals asking that person to gang up on people who are appealing their tax assessments. And that has gone without any punishment that I've ever seen. I also exposed through an FOIA the letter that Brad Sullivan had sent complaining about the harassment of Valerie Nye, and that I don't believe you'd seen until the FOIA had surfaced it. More recently, I asked through FOIA, the Board of Education to account for 5 years of encumbered funds that were completely opaque, and after wrangling with the FOIA Commission and with the auditors in the Education Department in Hartford, finally they did agree to account for 1 year. And that 1 year, $280,000 had been encumbered. They found $38,000 that hadn't been spent, which is going to be returned to the town. And that by itself would pay many times over for any of the FOIA requests that I had made. We also found $87,000 that had been paid in encumbered funds to someone called Omni Data Systems. And that money was supposed to be for instructional supplies. When asked what that was for, it turned out to be to pay for remote locks, to pay for intercoms, and to pay for panic buttons in the school offices and in the Board of Education. All legitimate expenses, and certainly in the wake of the Newtown massacre, but clearly not operating expenses, should have been capital expenses, and definitely not instructional supplies. So I blew a big hole in the way that encumbered funds were being not accounted for and opaque, which could lead to a great deal of sloppiness, as I think I show that it did, and it could even at some point lead to embezzlement, which I don't think anybody wants to see happen. Mr. Fritz also mentioned some posters that he found offensive, but the real offense, the real disgrace here was the court case that he brought trying to enjoin the town of Clinton from swearing in a duly elected First Selectman. And he sued everybody at this table. He also sued his running mate, Ray Regatta. He sued the 2 Register of Voters. He sued the election moderator. He sued everybody except the one person who admittedly fouled up that day. The one person who'd been responsible for the same-day registrations room and who failed to detect that one of the envelopes wasn't signed properly, and who closed that room 30 minutes before the polls were closed. This is the same person who was the president of the AFL-CIO, who tried to get the Democrats to gang up on some Republicans. It's the same person who sent who harassed Valerie and I. But this is the one person he decided he didn't want to sue. Now I understand he's trying to solicit $15,000 in his legal fees. He doesn't care very much about what it costs the town to have the town attorney there or what it costs the people he sued to be represented, but he cares a great deal about what he has to pay for attorney's fees out of his own pocket. I think clearly he's very self-centered, and on this matter at least seems to be something of a hypocrite. The people of Clinton have spoken very clearly in response to his question, so what are you going to do about it? And I think it's time to recognize that we've evolved greatly over the last 2-year cycle, and I think we're in a much better place. And some of that, I think that I have to take credit for, but the 3 people in this room who really can take credit for defeating Mr. Fritz. First, Mr. Fritz, who I think fell prey to his own arrogance and his complacency. Secondly, Mr. Farmer, who campaigned his heart out to win this and to sweep in a sea of Republicans. And finally, I think my FOIA request and the SEC complaint that forced him to pay $1,500 for misuse of taxpayer funds. So thank you for letting me get that off my chest. I did think his remarks deserved a response.
Okay, Mr. Carr, we hear what you're saying, and we will take it under advisement. Is there anybody else who would like to speak this morning? Okay, if not, we'll proceed with the meeting.